On this episode of the Chris Elliott Real Estate Show, we're talking about the 3 different ways to pull off a buy and a sale without ending up homeless. And now to the show.
Welcome to the Chris Elliott Real Estate Show, where we bring you insights into the local Central Virginia real estate market, go in depth to answer your real estate questions and concerns, and interview local figures and influencers in the greater Richmond area. And now let's get to the latest episode with your host, Chris Elliott, and co-host, Maddie Ray.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. This is show number 11. Maddie Wright, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm back on the podcast this week.
You are back on the podcast.
I got kicked off last week.
We suspended her. We put her in the corner for 2 weeks? A week?
1 week. Wow.
1
well,
week.
hold on. Let me just, I'm going to just throw you under the bus real quick.
Yeah, please do.
You straight down the river. So for anyone who doesn't know Chris as well as we know Chris, he lives and breathes and dies by his calendar. One of the very first things I noticed was the fact that you put the time you go to sleep in your calendar. I laughed about that for months. I still laugh about that. But the thing is, when I got kicked off the podcast, you weren't like, oh, hey, you're going to take a sabbatical this week. You just declined my calendar spot for the podcast.
Did you?
And made a new event without me.
Did you get the calendar email?
I got the email saying this event has been removed from your calendar. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, maybe I'll get another one. Then it was remade. Nope. I was like, guess I'm taking the week off.
That's how I used to break up with girlfriends too, back in the day.
I believe that.
No,
I wholeheartedly believe that.
Not at all. Not at all.
Allie, watch out.
Yeah. But yeah, I do. I put the time I go to sleep, and it's more of like a mental reminder of like, hey, it's 9 o'clock. If I keep working right now, it's going to throw off tomorrow.
It's 5:30 in the afternoon. It's time to go to sleep.
No, I don't do that. I go to sleep at 9. I'm very much an old man, but I'm up early though. What time do you wake up in the morning?
Like 7:30.
Yeah. Okay.
But you're in the gym by like 5. I don't roll like that.
What time do you go to sleep?
Depends. These days, 10:30, 11.
Yeah. Okay. So, but funny enough, Allie, my wife, she goes to sleep before I do. So she's asleep by like 8:30 and she doesn't wake up until like 7. So she's kind of a vampire.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. She likes her sleep. So.
When do your kids go to bed? If you guys go to bed at 8:30 and 9, like 4?
No, we put them to bed at 7:30 and then they wake up at 7. 7:38 is usually when they go to bed. So yeah, we're very regimented at my house. So. Yeah. It's so funny because people will be like, hey, can you come out and do this thing at like 7 o'clock on a Wednesday? I'm like, absolutely not.
You're like, I got to be in bed in 2 hours.
Bedtime is in 45 minutes. So I
need to do my whole 30-step skincare routine and get my butt in bed by 9 o'clock.
I don't know what you're doing with your life at 7:30 on a weeknight, but you need to be in bed. So
clearly I'm doing my life wrong.
So quick little funny story. So we've got some neighbors that live right next to us. And they've got 2 kids, and like before now it's daylight savings time, so it gets dark earlier. But like in the summer, we would put Charlotte to bed at like 8 o'clock, and she would be like, but you know, such and such are still out playing, and then we'd be like, no, they're going to bed, and then she looks out her window. Because her window looks out on the backyard. She's like, no, I can see them. And we're like, yeah, they're about to go to bed, so don't worry about it.
Aw, poor Charlotte.
Anyway, she's up at Adam early. Getting it in. All right. So speaking of getting in, what we're talking about today, we're talking about the 3 ways, getting the show in, the 3 ways to buy and sell without ending up homeless. Maddie, what are the different 3 ways to both buy and sell?
Okay.
It's been a crazy day, hasn't it?
It's been a crazy couple of weeks, but you know,
I think we're all starting to we're all starting to lose it.
I'm losing my GD mind.
Yeah. Okay. Talk to me though, and then so what we're gonna do, we're gonna spell out there's 3 different ways to pull off a buy and a sale. The reason I wanted to do this show today is we're starting to have a lot of conversations with folks that, including your sister, shout out to Sherry and Stacy, and Jason, of course. We're starting to have a lot of conversations this time of year of folks that say, hey, we know we want to make a move in 2020. We just don't know how to do it. You know, we own a home, so we need to sell this one, but we want to purchase the next one. Like, how do we make this all work? And usually there's just a lot of fuzziness, a lot of anxiety, a lot of confusion around the process. And I would venture to say, like, it certainly takes skills to help somebody buy a home. It certainly takes skills to help somebody sell a home successfully. But I think pulling off a buy and a sale with a client, whether they're upsizing, downsizing, moving laterally, that is really where the skills and abilities and know-how of a truly good realtor kind of shows forth, because you're really helping somebody through a huge transition in their life. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, because we had a client once who joked around with us. She's like, "Oh, I need to pull this off." She didn't do buy and sell; she just sold. But she was like, "Oh, I'm going to be homeless by the end of this," and like it was really funny. She said she was glad that you were helping her be homeless because she was selling her house.
Yeah.
Oh, they did do a buy and sell. I was thinking of the wrong person, but yeah. So they were actually worried about that. I mean, she was joking, but I feel like that's a real fear that people have.
Yeah, and rightfully so. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts with that transaction. You're moving from one home to the next. You have to kind of pull it off sometimes in a short amount of time. So we really wanted to go down deep into this conversation today. So whether you're using us as your realtors, which we would be honored to have your business. Yep. Or
we're number 22 in the state of Virginia.
Yes, that was a very cool thing. And thank you, everybody, for making us number 22 for RE/MAX in the state of Virginia for year-to-date 2019. Very, very thankful both to our clients, to you two guys, Maddie and Daniel, to all of our vendors, to RE/MAX Action as a firm. Super, super honored to have that. But anyway, back to the show.
You're number one in my book.
Oh, thank you. I'm blushing. She's digging for a raise is really what she's doing here.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's that time.
Yeah, it's that time of year. So anyway, Maddie, enough nonsense. Tell me about the 3 different ways to buy and sell.
So option 1 is buy before you sell.
Okay.
Option 2 is make a contingent offer.
Yep.
Number 3 is sell your home and then buy.
Okay. Which one out of those 3 in the time that you've been with me do you think is the best, and which one do you see us doing the most often?
So we're doing the selling and then buying most often,
Yep.
which I think is probably the best. We don't often do, I think we've done buy before sell maybe once.
Yep. Less people do that.
Yeah. The one that really scares me is the contingent offer.
Which we have some clients doing that right now.
I know, it scares me. And we just sold on one that they presented us with a contingent offer on the sale of their home that wasn't even on the market yet, which is what we're doing with our clients now.
Yeah. No,
That's scary.
That's right. Yeah, it is scary. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to run you through the 3 different scenarios. We're going to talk about the pros and cons of each. Let's talk about buying before selling. So what this means is you have a home that you own. You have a home that you want to purchase, whether you're downsizing, you're upsizing, whatever you're doing. The easiest and the simplest way to do this is to buy before you sell, meaning you purchase your home or you contract on your new home before the sale and not contingent upon the sale of your home. Now, this is the easiest way to do it. It's the
You think that's the easiest way?
well, it's the easiest way on you as the person that's doing that. The thing that the reason most people don't do this is because they don't have the financial capacity or the comfort level to do this. So to buy before you sell, or to buy non-contingent upon the sale of your home, you've got to either have the cash to purchase that home outright. You have to, or you have to be able to carry 2 mortgages at the same time and qualify for that. So most people don't have the financial capacity or ability to do that. And then even, we've had some clients that could afford to carry 2 mortgages at the same time, but they just don't have the comfort level of, hey, if I go out and I contract this new home and my home doesn't sell, or it takes longer than I need it to sell, I'm not comfortable carrying 2 mortgages for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months.
I don't blame them. I wouldn't be either.
Yeah, so that's something to think about. That's something to consider. And honestly, that's the reason most people end up not going this route. Now, we do have clients, maybe they're a little bit later in life, or they're more financially well-to-do or stable, and they do have that option, and they just say, you know what, it's going to cost them a little bit more, but I'd prefer not to move twice. I'd prefer not to deal with all the chaos. I'm just going to go ahead and buy my new home. Once I have it under contract, I'll list my home, or, hey, I'm just going to buy that home. I'm going to close on it. I'm going to move into it. And then once I've completely moved out, I'm going to then sell my current home. It's going to be vacant. I don't have to worry about showings and all of that.
Are loan officers okay with that?
Yeah. But here's the thing, like for if you owned a home and you wanted to buy another one and you wanted to do it this way, you would have to qualify to buy that new home whilst still owning your current home.
So the loan officer basically would have no part of the home sale. You wouldn't even really need to rope them in on the fact that you will be selling your home. Because it doesn't matter.
No, and that's a good question, because basically they just look at it and they say, hey, Maddie can afford to own 2 homes at one time. She qualifies to own 2 homes.
So they don't even really care.
No, they really don't care.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's the way to do that. Another thing, and this is probably a different topic for a different show, but there are such things as bridge loans, where you can basically take out a loan to, short-term financing to purchase that new home, and then with the understanding that you're going to be getting your home sold. I'm not going to go into depth on that today, just because we don't have the time, and that's something for a loan officer to explain.
We just had a loan officer.
I know, I should ask him that question. I was thinking about that when I was writing these show notes.
Missed opportunity.
All right. So does that make sense, though, before we move on to option number 2, buying before you sell? Do you have any questions on that?
Well, the only thing I don't really get is the whole concept of a bridge loan, but that's another time kind of deal.
It's
But
a different show.
But I'm surprised then that a lot of our clients don't buy and then sell, because a lot of them sell first and then buy.
Well, so once again,
and do a rent back.
Yeah, it goes back to most people. Your average American doesn't have that, and it's not a knock on anybody, but they just don't have the financial, the income and the debt to income ratios to where on paper they can qualify for owning 2 homes at the same time.
That's a lot of money anyway.
It's a lot of money. And then even I've had some clients that do qualify for that, where they're just like, you know what, even though I can get the second loan at the same time, I just don't want to I don't want to look at the prospect of carrying 2 mortgages at the same time.
My luck is I'd get my new house under contract, wait to sell my current one, and then you'd fire me, and then I'd be screwed.
That would be kind of funny.
You would deserve it.
You would do that on purpose too. You'd be like, you know what? I'm thinking about firing her. This is a great time. Let me just really royally screw her.
I wouldn't actually do it, but I would joke with you a little bit on that.
I have no doubt about that.
Yeah.
I don't think you'd actually do it, but there's still a little bit of fear in my heart.
And that's where we want you.
Right in the sweet spot.
Just a little bit of fear in the heart. And that goes out to all of my daughter's future boyfriends.
Don't be that guy. You're going to be the guy that cleans their gun while your daughter's prom date's rolling up to the house.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm not scared to go back to prison.
Oh my God. Can we have
Mike.
a show about... Stop. Don't get me started. That's Pandora's box you really don't want to open, because I won't shut up.
Daniel, does that make sense? What we explained there?
Yeah.
Okay.
The worst part about prison was the Dementors.
All right, moving on. All right, take us into the second option.
Making a contingent offer.
Making a contingent offer. So when we're talking about making a contingent offer, we're talking more specifically about making a first right of refusal offer. So Maddie, what this looks like, let's pretend you're the person that owns the home that I want to purchase. You're the seller, I'm the buyer. So I say, hey, Maddie, I really like your house. Here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to buy your home. The only thing is I'm only going to be able to buy your home if I get mine sold. So I'd like to make you a contingent offer contingent upon the sale of my home. So you're going to say, hey, Chris, that's great, but here's the thing. That's a lot of risk for me to assume to let you put my house under contract.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is a first right. So
Those are scary. They scare me. Because, a lot can happen. It's like, the time is of the essence thing. What if they put their home on the market and it sits and it sits and it sits?
Yeah. So, well, let's explain this. Let's define this real quick. So basically what a first right offer is when a buyer says, hey, I want to purchase your home. I've got to get mine sold first. And we agree to a couple things up front. We agree to the fact that the seller still gets to market their property as active, but up until you get your home under contract. So until your home goes under contract or sells, quote unquote, that seller gets to continue to market their property as active. The only thing that they have to disclose to a prospective buyer is that, hey, we do have this first right of refusal in place. The other thing is there too, usually you have a what's called a response period. It's either 24, 48, 72 hours. Typically, you can create any time frame that you want, but it's generally one of those three things, which means that if that seller, whilst continuing to market their property, receives another non-contingent offer. So Daniel comes along and says, hey, I have cash, or hey, I've got I'm getting a mortgage, but I don't have a property to sell. He can make an offer to Maddie, and then Maddie can accept that offer. And then she has to come back to me and say, hey, we agreed to a 24-hour response period. You now have 24 hours to either get your home sold and take the contingency away, or you've got to back out of this contract so I can move forward with Daniel. Okay. So it's got to be fair to both sides.
In that situation, I'd leave you for Daniel.
Oh, well, thanks. I appreciate it.
I mean, it's the safer option if you're
Payroll
selling.
might be a little late.
I don't think so. Anyway, so, but that's less risky if you're selling. Like if you have someone come to you, let's say all the rest of the terms are the same, except we're ready to get rock and rolling right now. No contingency or not contingent on the sale.
Well, so here's what you got to look at it from a seller's perspective. And looking at it real quick, you say, hey, why would a seller not take that deal? They get to continue to market their property. They can shop for a better offer. I mean, why wouldn't they be so excited about that? The thing from a seller's perspective is once you've accepted a first right of refusal offer, it can turn away some new prospective buyers because some buyers say, hey, I don't want to fall in love with this property and make this offer just to find out 24, 48 hours later, this other person is just going to waive their contingency or get their home sold and this home's going to be sold out from under me kind of thing. The other thing is too, from a seller's perspective is even if everything works out, it's still a contingent offer because it's still contingent upon the sale of your home. And if that deal falls apart, now you've really screwed the seller because the seller's contracted with you. They've taken their home off the market once your home sells. And then if your deal falls apart, their deal falls apart as well. So on a best case scenario, it's still a contingent offer upon the closing of your home.
Yeah.
It's convenient for a buyer. We have some clients going through it right now. Kind of where this makes sense for a buyer is if a buyer says, hey, there's this one house that I want to go after. If I can't get this house under contract, we really don't want to move. Or like the situation we have going with our clients right now where they say, hey, we haven't really seen anything that we would be interested in moving to. We don't want to get our home sold if we don't have anywhere to go. They have 3 small kids. So they're like, hey, we don't want to end up, homeless. So if this deal doesn't work out right here, we're just going to wait until the next property pops up. So there is a time and a place for the first right of refusal offer. The thing to know too is somebody, if you're considering this may all sound good. You're like, yeah, I want to do that route. With the market that we've been in where it's been a very hot seller's market, a lot of times these particular offers don't work because with the market being as hot as it is, sellers just don't want to fuss with a first right of refusal offer because there's an abundance of non-contingent buyers out there. Does that make sense?
You've been saying that too in your market update videos since like March.
Yeah. You actually watch this?
I do.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm probably the only one.
I make my wife watch them, but I think it's just
when we do the shorties and I have to watch the videos over and over again because I'm transcribing them, it drives David nuts. He'll laugh like the first time he hears it, and then he's like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah.
So he watches, shorties.
he's still sick of the audiobooks I'm making him listen to.
I have a video I have to show you later where he's just like going off like about that current place, and yeah.
You should get that to Daniel, and maybe Daniel can. I don't know if it's PG-13.
It's very PG. It's not even PG-13.
Okay, all right.
It's inappropriate.
We should get a clip of that though in the video. I think that'd be fun.
Oh, that would embarrass him so much.
I know, it'd be awesome.
I love embarrassing him. I told him about how we were pressuring him into putting a ring on it.
Oh wow, how'd that conversation go?
He's like, "Stop trying to pressure me. You know that I won't succumb to any pressure. I'm just gonna do what I want anyway." And I asked him, since we're going to Nashville.
When I was young and stupid, I remember I used to say stuff like that.
Well, it's true for him. Like, even his parents are pressuring him. So, I was like, "Are you gonna propose while we're in Nashville?" And he's like, "No, I'm gonna do it in the most unromantic way possible."
Wow.
He said a very specific way, but I'm not gonna share that on the air.
Okay.
It's PG, but not podcast appropriate.
Okay, let's move on.
It's not PA. Weird. Podcast appropriate.
All right, back to first right of refusal.
I don't even know where we were. I just got on the tangent of embarrassing David because it's my favorite pastime.
First right of refusal offer. So time and a place for it. Just know there's some risk involved. It's not really working on most properties. Like I said, you've got to have.
Because it's scary.
Well, it's scary for both sides. The way to pull this off, you've got to have a property that's probably been sitting on the market for a little while, or a property where there's an abundance of inventory, which we're just not seeing in most parts of Richmond these days. The other thing is too, the other downside to somebody that's, to the buyer, if that's you in this scenario, is generally sellers are only willing to accept contingent offers that are stellar offers. In other words, don't think you're going to be able to negotiate a great price and get a contingent offer. Usually it's, hey, I'm paying top dollar for the house because of the fact that this seller is taking on the risk of taking this offer. Does that make sense?
Deservedly so.
Yeah, in most cases, yeah. So you can't get it both ways. You can't get a great deal, a steal, and contingent offer. Just not really working in most markets. So
Makes sense.
Cool. All right, moving on to number 3, Maddie. What are we talking about?
Selling before you buy.
Selling before you buy. This is the route that I would say 90-95% of our clients end up taking. Just because it makes the most sense. And a lot of times it's really the only option that most people have. So let's break this down. So basically what this means is that we are getting your home up on the market, we're getting it under contract, and then once you have the property either sold and closed out, or you get your property under contract, then you can go shop for your next home. Now, the reason this is the way that most people can do this is because, or the only way most people can do this is because they can't own 2 homes at the same time, or they can't qualify to own 2 homes at the same time. So they need to get their home sold, and then their next offer is going to be contingent upon their home selling, because that's the only way the mortgage lender will give them make the loan, is saying, hey, we can only make this loan so long as your previous home sells. And then most people are taking the equity from their home that they're selling, they're putting it towards their next house, kind of rolling it into the down payment. And that's how the large majority of people make a move like that, whether you're upsizing or downsizing or whatever sizing.
As long as you're sizing.
Yeah, as long as you're sizing. So a couple things to know, or a couple things that we suggest. So if you're going out and looking at doing this next year or at any point, know what you want to buy once you get your home sold, because typically once we get your home sold, the clock is ticking. You have a limited, we always try to negotiate as much time for you, but you're always going to have a finite amount of time that you need to find your next home, before your home sells and you need to move out of it. So a couple of different ways you can do this. You can go to open houses, you can look around. One of the things that we'll do for our clients sometimes, if they're looking out towards, in 2020, is we'll set them up on email alerts saying, hey, tell me what you're really looking for. And we'll set you up on email alerts based upon, what you want your next home to be. And then sometimes we'll even say, hey, let's pull the last 12 months of sales of homes like that you want. And let's just see, are you looking for a unicorn that doesn't exist, or is what you're looking for actually out there? Is it available in the price point that you're looking? Let's just wrap our heads around what you're actually going to be buying next. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
That's helpful for people too, because they always look at those things and then they'll text you or text me and they're like, this just came up on our thing.
Is that how they sound?
Hold on, those words. They're usually more articulate than I.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to do.
Hopefully so.
Thanks.
No, but what it does, it just gives folks that confidence. Like what we're going to do with, we're meeting with Maddie's sister on Tuesday. So Monday.
Brandermill next year.
Yeah, there you go.
If you're looking.
Coming soon. No, but what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, let's talk about what you want to buy next. Let's look at and make sure that product exists. Let's look at how many of those hit the market within a given year. And that way you have the confidence to know that, hey, if I get my home up on the market, if I get it sold, I can go out with confidence knowing that, these homes come up regularly, or, hey, I'm looking for a very rare home that exists, but only a few of them trade every year. So maybe this isn't the best strategy for me, or, maybe I need to be prepared to go into temporary housing once I get my home sold, just so that, we don't end up homeless by the side of the road.
One of my sisters, the one that we were just talking about, what she's looking for is out there, plentiful. She will have pretty much no problem finding that.
Yeah.
The other one's looking for a unicorn. So we got the best of both worlds.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so for your first sister, I mean, that's going to be a good thing. We know, hey, we can get the property up on the market. We can get it sold. We shouldn't have any issues there. All right. So what we try to negotiate here is there's 2 different ways you can do this. there's two different ways you can kind of extend the time in which you have to shop for a property. The first way, which is my favorite, is negotiating out a rent back. Maddie, what is a rent back?
A rent back is so after closing is done, the seller still live there for a certain amount of time. We've had it be a couple of days to as long as maybe a month. They're paying rent on it, and they put a deposit on it to make sure they don't mess anything up or anything's not, how it was when it sold.
Yep.
Just so that they can have more time to look around for a new house or get their ducks in a row before they move out. Because a lot of times those people don't necessarily want to do temporary housing or something of the like while they look for a new home.
Yeah. So let's say an example, you get your home up on the market, you get it sold. You get it sold on January 1. You're set to close on February 1. So that only gives you kind of 30 days to go out and shop for your next home and close on it, which is a very short time frame. So what we try to do is we try to negotiate out a rent back to where you can stay in that home for March 1, until March 1 rather. So on February 1, the new buyer becomes the legal owner of the property, but you get to stay in the home and you get to rent it back from the purchaser, hence the name rent back, for 30 days, which just buys you that time to identify your next home, get it under contract, get moved before you have to move out of your current home.
See, even you're more articulate than I am.
Yeah. Hey, if you're looking for a job, we're hiring.
Second week in a row.
We need to replace.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anyway.
What was that? We were talking about giving me a raise earlier. Can we go back to that conversation?
I think we were talking about not giving you a raise.
Oh, okay. I got it mixed up, I guess.
Yeah.
We're cutting your pay in half and giving the other half to me and Chris. We're going to split it.
Silly Maddie.
Daniel, that's funny because I still am owed a finder's fee for even bringing Daniel on. So.
I think we got some leftover Halloween candy.
That's not okay.
All right. So we talked about rent backs. The other way to do this, which some people do, is they say, hey, let's just negotiate a long closing. So instead of closing on, in that example, instead of closing on February 1st, let's close on March 1st. And then, we won't close for 60 days.
That's a long closing.
Yeah, it's a long closing. I'm not as big of a fan of that just because the longer of a closing period you have, the more margin for error is.
Idle hands are the devil's plaything.
Sure.
In that situation, your hands are idle because you're not doing anything, so more stuff can arise.
Yeah. Well, the longer of a closing time that you have, I don't know how that made sense, but sure.
It's okay. It takes a certain... Never mind. I'm not going to go there.
Okay.
I was going to be mean, but I decided against it because I want to raise.
Back on topic. So basically, the longer closing period you have, the more opportunity there is for stuff to go wrong. And it's also too, it's a longer time that you're non-contingent. In other words, if I have a property listed and you as the buyer, doing the rent or doing the long closing and everything, make an offer on my listing, I'm going to say, hey, look, this thing's going to be contingent for 45 days versus, hey, it's only going to be contingent for 30 days or 15 days because you're doing the rent back period. It's just longer closing dates. I'm not a fan of them. Neither
am I.
Yes.
That's the Chris Elliott Real Estate Team's official stance.
Yeah, there you go.
If you disagree, Daniel, sorry.
Yeah. Now, something to know doing this strategy is there is the potential to end up homeless. Thankfully, knock on wood, we've never had a client that has ended up homeless. But even if we negotiate out you could be the first one. No. So even if we negotiate that 30-day rent back period and you've got a 30-day, contract period, that still means that you only have 60 days to identify your next property, get it under contract, and get it closed before you have to move out of your current home. So usually, depending on what the kind of property you're looking for, that's usually enough time to go out and find something. But that is something, just a disclaimer up front, and that's something we always share with our clients of, hey, look, like we do have to get moved out of the property by this date. So we feel very confident we can find you something, but just know that's a risk there. But that's, sometimes it's just a risk you have to deal with. And then lastly, the final way that you can do this, which we had a couple clients that did this this year, including some that just closed yesterday.
God bless them. They're moving from a really big house to a tiny apartment.
But then eventually back to a bigger house.
Oh, yeah. Their new house is in the works, and it's going to be amazing. But God bless them for now.
Yeah. It should be a nice family bonding over the next few months. But the last way that you can do this is you can get your home sold close it, move into temporary housing, rental of some sort. And that way you're not having to do 2 moves. You don't have the pressure of all that. And if you really want to take your time finding your next home, or if you're looking for a very unique product
or building,
you can do that where you sell your home, you go into a rental, an apartment or something for a set amount of time, and then you just take your time finding your next home. So that's what you can do there.
But then you're bound by a lease.
Yeah, but I mean, you
like me, for example, let's say right now, David and I are like, we want to buy that house right away.
Yeah.
So I'm stuck in my lease till April.
Absolutely. But at the end of the day, you got to live somewhere. Right.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So unless you're staying with your folks or you've got a very friendly landlord, which hopefully you'll eventually have here if you moved into your dad's property.
Shout out to my dad.
Yeah. But it's just the reality of, there's pros and cons to each way you go about this. So
yeah.
Anyway, do you think we explained that? I feel like I was
ad nauseum.
I feel like I was rambling a lot, but did that make sense?
You always ramble.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me, but this is my job. So
Okay.
does it make sense to you? You're not real estate?
Yes.
Were you listening?
Absolutely.
Of course.
Are you sure?
I have headphones on. I can't not.
You can tune
All right.
us out. You do it on the daily anyway.
Let's jump to the fire round. All right, so now to the fire round, we're going to take 5 questions from the social mediums. Who's got them today? Or Daniel's got them.
He's running the Facebook.
Hello.
Nice. Okay. What do the good folks at Facebook and Instagram want to know?
All right, let's start with this one.
Yes.
What can I expect my agent to do to keep me from becoming homeless? Like finding rental properties or negotiating more time for me to find something?
I got this. Don't worry about it.
Go for it.
This will keep you from rambling. So what you can expect from you can't expect this from your agent, but you can expect this from your agent's transaction coordinator.
Which hopefully your agent has one.
If you're working with us, the number 22 agent in the state of Virginia with Remax, then your agent has a transaction coordinator. The wonderful transaction coordinator has been known to call.
Hey, I'm surprised those headphones still fit with your head getting
Don't
as big as
start
it
with
is.
me, Chris Elliott. Do you know how many things in this office have your face on them?
All right, let's go. Answer the question.
I have been known to call every apartment complex in the surrounding area and find out what your lease term options are.
Yep.
I have done this twice this year.
It's a very fun task for
It's
Maddie.
the bane of my existence. I'll be quite frank with you. However, I've done it for 2 clients that I have particularly loved. So if you're one of them and you're watching, love you.
I was there when you were calling the second time and they remembered you, which was really funny.
But anyway, so I will call wherever you're looking, Chesterfield, this area, West End, wherever. I'll call around, see. Most recently, I've had to see if they have 3-month lease terms, 3 to 6 months, but their short-term leasing options are, and kind of compile that in one big Google Doc for you with prices, move-in costs, where they are, what the earliest date you can move in, the works. So that's what you can expect from us. As far as negotiating the longest term, that's not on me. That's you.
Yeah. So, we typically negotiate up front, and it sounds like that question is coming from somebody like, hey, I got my home sold, but I'm not finding something yet, I would assume. We negotiate up front to the length of the rent back. So we do what we can to negotiate a longer time if that's not working out, but also keep in mind, like the buyers and the people on the other end of the transaction also have lives and plans that they have to make. So, we do what we can to renegotiate the length, but at some point you're going to have to move out. So, just know that that's a fact. I mean, we try to help as much as we can, but we can't just say, hey, we're not going to move. You could do that, but there's consequences.
Well, plus, if you're selling your house or you get an offer on your house and it's a perfect offer, and then you're like, well, I want to take it, but I want to counter and add a rent back. That buyer can just be like, nope, sorry, walk away, and then you lose a perfect offer.
Yeah, you got to weigh your options of like, hey, look, I've got a full price offer. I've got a really good offer on the table. Maybe the trade-off is I end up going in temporary housing or something like that, or I live with family for a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and secure this offer. So it's something you just got to weigh your options of what makes sense. So anyway, I think we answered that question. What's the next one?
I answered that question.
All right, so the next one is, are there generally any protections in my contract with my agent to help me avoid being homeless, or is this kind of a it falls on my shoulders thing?
That's all you, baby.
No. So I guess I would need to know the context. So whoever asked that question, shoot me a DM or something, and we can talk through it. But as far as in our contract or in a homeless, I guess, I'd really need to know the situation. And what we like to do with clients is we like to talk through, like, here's the pros and cons of each strategy, kind of like we did in this podcast today. Here's your different options. Here's what could go right, and here's what could go wrong either way you do it. So we basically try to lay it out up front with the client, and just kind of, if there's any concerns, let's turn that rock over and let's deal with it up front. So that way we're not dealing with it when the situation arises and everybody's caught off guard. So didn't exactly answer the question, but would need more information to really answer that one.
All right, we have another one. This one is, how long of a rent back can I usually negotiate?
7 years.
That actually happened in California. It was very interesting.
Really?
I shared a cab. So this is how crazy. Richmond's kind of like a middle of the road type real estate market. I shared a cab. I was at a conference in Arizona. I shared a cab to the airport with a guy who's a realtor in San Diego or San Francisco or one of the Sands, and somewhere in California. Very, very hot market, crazy prices. Somebody had sold a 900 square foot dilapidated house for $1 million, and they gave the seller a 7-year rent back, meaning here's $1 million for your property, and oh, by the way, you get to stay in it free of charge for the next 7 years. It was bananas.
So I could sell my apartment for $1 million, and rent it out to someone else for 7 years.
Probably not.
Yeah, don't try to sell your apartment.
Yeah, but
Darn it.
No, as far as rent backs go, really just depends what kind of offer we can negotiate. I would say we typically shoot for 30 days. It depends what type of situation the buyer's in. Like, are they in a lease? Are they going to be homeless here pretty soon? Or are they in like a long-term lease that they're, exiting early, so they don't care? Or they live in on a month-to-month lease option. So we generally try, I would say we shoot for 30 days. Generally, we're usually able to work out anything between 15 and 30 days. And then I would say the most we've ever done is like 60 days. Also keep in mind, if your buyer is getting a mortgage, which most of them will be, their lender typically doesn't allow for anything longer than a 60-day rent back, because they want to know that the buyer is moving into the property and taking possession of the property generally within 60 or 90 days. Because if it goes longer than that, then it's considered an investor loan, because you're saying, hey, you purchased this property, but you're not actually living in it. Does that make sense?
Hopefully the seller figures something out, because they can't call around the city of Richmond and find good places to pitch a tent.
Okay. Random comment of the day.
No, you said home. We're talking about being homeless.
Oh, yeah.
So I called around for apartments, but I can't call around and figure out where they can set up a nice tent or like a box.
She was trying to tell a joke.
I hate you.
Womp, womp.
All right, next question.
Wow.
This one is kind of similar to my layman's eyes, but it is what happens if I want to stay in my property longer than my rent back?
You get evicted. Next question.
No. Man, Maddie's a savage today. So somewhat of a similar question. So in our rent back agreements, there's a section that is negotiated up front, which basically says, hey, this is the amount of rent here's the time frame that we're agreeing to up front. We're agreeing to, let's say, 30 days up front. Here's the rent that we are going to be paying for those 30 days. And that's broken down either like for the whole 30 days or, a per diem basis or whatever. But then there's another section specifically for this reason, because it happens from time to time, where a seller doesn't want to vacate the property in the time frame that they've agreed to vacate the property. So there's another section in there where we negotiate like, hey, if you don't get out of the property by the time that you say you're going to, then the rent goes to X amount per day, which is just basically like a hammer in our contracts for saying, hey, we're all agreeing up front, you're going to move out on this, this time and date. But if you don't, then the rent starts going up to, typically we'll put in like $100 a day, to where it starts getting really pricey really quick. interesting enough, if you ever look at the back of a hotel door, they'll tell you like, hey, it costs, $10,000 a month to live here. And that's basically kind of the same thing as that hotel saying, hey, if you fail to just get out of some municipalities don't allow you just to kick somebody out of the hotel room, but if you fail to leave, they can start charging you enormous rates on a per diem basis because you're basically holding up hostage in a.
So why can you kick someone out of your rental property, but you can't kick someone out of a hotel? That doesn't make sense.
Different show, different topic, evictions. We should get an eviction attorney in here to talk about evictions, but that's a whole different show.
Oh, great. I'll take another sabbatical.
Next question.
All right. So this looks like if I have the capacity to buy before I sell or sell before I buy and it's a hot market, which is more an attractive offer to a seller?
Absolutely buying before you sell, or another way to say that is making an offer that is not contingent upon the sale of your home, because any seller would prefer a non-contingent offer. And the reason being is they don't want to be tied to another transaction. When you take a contingent offer, you're tied to another transaction. So you've got to worry about the transaction you're in with your buyer. And then you've also got to worry about the transaction that your buyer is engaged with their buyer, because if that one falls apart, then this one's going to fall apart as well. Simple answer, non-contingent offer. And keep in mind too, you can still list your home immediately after you get that one under contract. You're just not saying that this purchase is contingent upon that one.
You knocked that softball straight out of the park.
Whoa. All right. Any more questions?
That was the 5 that I picked.
Okay, cool. Guys, that was show number 11, 3 ways to buy and sell without ending up homeless. If a move is in your future for 2020, we'd love to chat with you. We'd love to walk you through your options. So let us know if we can do that. Daniel will link up our contact information in this show. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you on episode 12 next week.